I want to share with you all a bit of the journey that we've been on together, and in particular, your journey, because it's inspired me a lot. And I think you have something very important to offer the community and some really powerful gifts to bring to anyone, and certainly within the circling community. I think what you bring can really support what's already there. And that's been my experience with what you've brought to me in the way that you've worked with me. And that's why I'm very excited to work with you in our upcoming workshop and future workshops, because of how fruitful that combination can be.
Yeah, it's been really inspiring to work with you too, and to just feel our friendship growing from that, and also my own work developing, like in the sessions I've been doing with you, like giving movement sessions, and like my own work developing through that also. It's been an important part of it.
Could you describe a bit what it is that you do to people? So I said do to people, I meant like so that the people listening to the video can get a sense of what you do.
Right. Yeah, in the workshops I give, there has been like it feels like a more superficial context of teaching movement patterns and like exploring, opening people's bodies, like physically, gaining more range, gaining more connection, which then, like I discovered through working with people in more of a circling context, that the emotions that come up in people as they meet, like as they're facing the internal resistance to doing exercises, and the emotions that show themselves during work like that, which I've in the past kind of powered through, or just like haven't had much time for it. Just staying with those emotions and like following my own intuition in that, using my own practice of like the energetic work I've been doing, the qigong and tai chi practice, which I've been cultivating for many years. Just using that level of awareness to tune into people's bodies and staying with them in the process, like holding a very open space,
Right.
for whatever wants to express itself. And it seems like the flavor of the space I'm holding a lot of the times allows for more movement, and kind of also working with deep traumas, like that can't often be expressed with words. Like sometimes it's kind of pre-verbal stuff that comes up, which then in that sort of a context, I think it's easier to work with that through movement. Yeah. So that's what I feel most inspired to work with now, which I'm kind of gearing my workshops. I'm stepping more into that myself, like opening more up to that. Feels like exposing myself and what I really want to do. And it feels a bit scary, but feels like the richest space for, I guess, my gifts to show themselves, where I can, provide people with more depth, also people that are ready to go there.
Because when I've experienced your work at its best, it's had the circling presence. It hasn't been kind of like going through the motions. It's like your willingness to be kind of so present with what's happening with everyone, but inviting the body into movement and inviting people to find their natural movements and exploring with movement. And what I love about it is it's like so similar to circling, but it's a different way in. So in the way that we would go in more from like, oh, how I'm feeling in relation to you, which still you might use. It's really when people are in certain positions of movement, it's like the body itself starts to reveal things. And it's through your presence to that very, very deep things that kind of haven't been seen can be found very, very quickly just through doing a few movements with high quality attention that you bring to it. And I've experienced that myself, where it's been beautiful to, on a physical level, have my body expand and have greater range, and really feel how that links to my ability to have more emotional range or in my being. But it's also been powerful to touch those emotional parts that come up when I start to explore different parts of my body. And then more than that is then when there's something that I am working on, or that's something that's shown up for me emotionally or physically, it's like seeing the crossover and that they can be worked on like doubly. So for example, my hands it feels like they're opening up a lot. I've started to notice how much tension I hold in my hands, how much I'm squashing them. And by you getting me to do handstands and kind of realizing that my wrists weren't very flexible, and it kind of showed up in my body, the tightness that had come about from the emotional stuff. So I can practice it by putting my hands in a more relaxed position, and I do that, and I feel the emotions that come with that. But also I can practice it by doing handstands, which strengthen them and give them more flexibility.
Yeah.
And it's that working at like what we're trying to develop in ourselves from both sides, both from a physical movement perspective and from a more emotional circling perspective, that just seems like doubly powerful.
Totally. Yeah. It's interesting when you're speaking, because like the work I'm doing these days, like a lot of the time sometimes I start off with an idea of like, oh yeah, it'd be good to work on that, and then it ends up with like nothing but like really deep work, just going into some emotion that just kind of just showed itself right in the beginning of the session, and all of like my plans of like introducing structure and working on handstands or whatever just have to go out the window. And then it's something totally different that's just revealed itself. And that feels like where it has to be right now. Like, and a lot of the times it takes a long time for us to work into actually doing kind of structured work in that way, because there's so much emotional, what shall I say, could be trauma or resistance, or the stuff on top of that needs to be resolved first. And also our like people's general relationship to movement, which is all very often quite I should say coloured by like the modern fitness industry, and like the way of approaching movement as we're training as something kind of separate from our lives, something we have to put on special clothes for, we have to go to the gym to do it, instead of something that's just integrated in our day, like something that we do because we enjoy doing it. And it's not a chore, it's just like, oh yeah, I can feel I need movement now.
Yeah.
I want to move. Like there's I think a way in which we I imagine people in the circling community, a lot of them are more in touch with that feeling of kind of being deprived of movement. Like, we notice, oh yeah, my body's contracted. Like, oh, what's the solution for that? do I just sit still and stay with it, or like does it want to expand into movement? What's actually here now? Oh yeah, there's something that wants to move.
Right.
And I think we've been, at least I was, like very conditioned to ignore that, like through school, just sitting still every day, like being told off if I move too much. And it's such a key part of us as human beings, just to want to move. And yeah, I think like integrating that even more into circling, I think it has such a potential for, like as you mentioned earlier, like there's so much expression just in movement.
Right.
Like we might not even have to share with words what's happening, because the body's already revealing what's there.
Exactly. And that's where it can be touching pre-verbal stuff and maybe transpersonal stuff as well.
Absolutely.
And that's where, through the influence of you and Alanya, although circling is a stillness practice, it comes initially from a meditative focus, then including and inviting the movement or the form to come in. What we found is often that the only way to express certain things is through movement.
Yeah.
I also want to mention about movement culture that Ido Portal has championed, and how that's inspired us both a lot. And it's really opens up exercise and movement and combines martial arts and dance and Tai Chi and all these different disciplines that know about the body, and so that you can learn from all of them and work on all of them. And as you said, not just go to the gym to do it in a particular range, but explore the fundamentals and integrate it into your day.
Yeah.
Which for me is just a beautiful kind of development in the world, just in terms of the physical body. But it's been so good for me, not just from the physical side, but to link it to my emotional development, because I get greater range in my body. I get, like if I'm doing a lizard movement on the ground, which is really good for different stability in my shoulders and things, it's actually putting me in touch with my reptilian brain, which is something in circling that we start to integrate these more primal parts of ourselves and get a lot more energy from that. And again, it's like this cross training of working on it from a emotional point of view or a circling point of view, and then working on it physically and getting breakthroughs on both sides of it.
Yeah, like Ido Portal's method and like the way he's been sharing his philosophy has had a deep impact on me. Like coming from like quite a traditional background, in which the masters are often like they're very judgmental of other approaches, and like kind of letting go of that mindset and just opening up for like what is movement really, like letting go of
everything.
Yeah, everything. And there is no wrong movement. There's nothing that's wrong, except in a certain context it can be wrong. Like in the context of practicing Tai Chi, a certain shape or structure can be wrong. But when you open up to just exploring movement, then there isn't anything that's wrong in that sense, which is beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah, and that's where it's similar to integral theory.
Yeah.
Which has been something that's inspired me a lot in the past, of like no knowledge systems or theories are 100% wrong. And it's just this idea that each of them has got a piece. And if we get information from all of these different disciplines, you can build something way bigger and stronger than before. And that's what I love about this movement culture that Ido Portal is bringing forwards. What I get really excited about for you in the future is that I think you can bring the next level to that culture by bringing in an emotional depth that isn't currently present in that. They have some awareness on it for sure, but it doesn't seem anywhere near the depth that we work with in circling, and where especially in things like dance, but also in terms of sport, like the emotional blocks of the body directly affect the physical performance. So by working on those at the same time, like you're very able to do, it can bring a whole new level of performance ability to whatever the movement is.
Massively so, I feel. And I owe a lot to you guys in circling and Alanya's work, which has inspired me a lot in my own practice, and just really freed up a lot of my own emotional hang-ups and blocks around movement, and just in more in actually self-expression, like being transparent in my expression, especially in movement. Like, it's, for me, that was so vulnerable. Like, being transparent, just sitting in presence was kind of easy. It's like, yeah, I can sit in presence all day. But then, like, actually like going into shape and showing what's here, it's like, oh, it's like, I feel like I'm kind of showing my little baby to the world and just hoping that no one's gonna hurt it.
Yeah.
I feel so vulnerable.
And similarly with dance, if you're going to dance like really in connection with others, that's what I'm experiencing at the moment, where I'm so used to being in a deep connection with people, just one-on-one or in a group, and feel very comfortable in expressing things. And then to do that through dance or movement, as you say, it just touches different things that really feels worthwhile touching, because it's like they're the limits of my being at the moment. It's like that's the limit of my range, and by going into those vulnerable areas, we get to free up those energies and find new ranges, so that we can be much fuller people and more expressed people and more alive people.
Yeah, that's what I'm inspired to help people achieve more and more, because it's been so rich for me. Like, just more expression. And like, how are you going to have expression without including the body? Like, that's, I feel sometimes we ignore that a bit. I think I'm being a bit gentle now, but yeah, it feels like a key part of that development, missing piece, which is so rich and so can be like delicate, or it can be like really powerful and overpowering, like the expression that's inside. It's like fear of hurting people, or fear of being hurt. And it's like there's a lot of us in that, like, primal energy.
And how our movement patterns and our posture has developed to fit into our comfort zones emotionally. And as we work emotionally, we can become more comfortable with certain things, which can help our posture open. But we can also go from working on our posture on our movement ranges to in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, like just noticing how we, like, in certain constellations under different kinds of emotional kind of tension, or like uncomfortable situations when they arise, just noticing how our body posture changes, how we like start holding our breath or breathing like more shallowly, or like standing in a certain way, holding our body, like holding tension, oftentimes without it being conscious at all.
Right.
Like, it just enables us to not feel an uncomfortable sensation as powerfully.
I'd like to name what I consider mine to be, and one that I think I've seen in you in this call. Because one for me is where I start going like this, and I start distancing. And there was one I thought I caught with you about 5 minutes ago where you nodded. And I thought it's actually a way to avoid it's like we got out of flow in some way. Or
right, could be. Yeah, they show up all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I like is you've pointed those out to me, like just the angle of my left foot, for example, when I sit.
Right.
And then I learned from Lynn Creedon about how that the legs going outwards is a way for us to dissipate our sexual energy.
Mm.
And you had noticed it from it's a less efficient way to use strength in my leg. And it's more on my left leg. So kind of realigning my left leg, which I've been working on for a while now, it feels better from a movement point of view, but also I can feel it from an energetic point of view that I felt it energetically, how it can kind of dissipate that energy. And by keeping it in more, I have more energy in my balls and I can express more in that way. And that's another example of this, the way we can work on ourselves. And I really want this to be clear to the people in the circling community, because my vision of the community is very much a practice community where we're using circling as a vehicle to help each other grow and develop powerfully. And that's been mine and Sean's ethos from the beginning. It was just like, wow, now that we have this circling technology, we want to do it a lot to help growth.
Yeah.
And now for me, and I know for you, it's like almost equal to that is the attention I put on my physical body and the way I move it and the attention to noticing these different patterns, and then noticing that I can then come back in, and then I feel the more present contact between us.
Mm.
So just having that in my daily practice, having all those movement elements is just so key. And I want people within the community to get that wisdom and to have support from you and from us to design programs for themselves or to deepen in awareness on these things so that they can start to become more aware and then do relevant practices to support them.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, well, that when you said programs, what that triggers in me is like trying to design programs for people that do circling, like trying to use that traditional, you do so and so many sets, so and so many repetitions, and it's like every time it's just backfired completely because they're like, I'm feeling this, and like what feels more rich is just introducing like exercises and
principles,
and also like movement patterns which can be explored,
right?
Like, because there's so much that we're not familiar with just because of our habitual way of moving. And I've been introduced to a lot of new movement patterns through like amazing people that I've met the last few years, like Ido Portal and many of my friends in the movement community and dancers. And it's like bringing the circling presence into that, and especially into like completely free and improvised movement, which I've been exploring a lot in myself, like how to really stay in that place of flow and expression and be revealing myself constantly in connection with someone else. Like I did a performance a few months back that you saw a little clip of, in which I was just on an empty stage. I was sitting on a chair in front of an audience that I didn't know, and I had half an hour to let something happen, and I had no idea what would happen, and just staying fully in myself, in revealing myself in connection with the audience.
Yeah, because they could type messages in that came through as a voice to you. Yeah,
the audience had access to computers that they could type questions or comments or whatever they wanted really into and communicate with me. So that was the basis of my input for creating this performance. And it was mind-blowing experience for me, and really a liberating experience also, like just being in that space in front of people that I'd never met before. yeah, I just went to really deep places, like a lot of sadness, which then exploded at the end. It was like just released into this massive joy, and I was moving in a way that I've never done before.
Right.
Like just from staying in that space in front of this group of people, which in essence they were circling me.
Yeah.
So I was in the center of this massive birthday circle, and Yaniv, the director, he was like choosing music, and like sometimes like certain moments where the audience, Yaniv and I, we were like, everything was in sync. Everyone was working together to like in some sort of flow that was just something was just being created like in the moment, and it was beautiful, and it was, yeah, it's just something that could never have been directed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was so inspired when you shared that, because to me it was another illustration of what we are naming surrendered leadership, and what we experience in All There Is, of where we really connect with each other and really show up and kind of surrender, let go of the safety nets and the structures of what should happen.
Yeah.
And then open to a greater force that we're not in control of. How beautiful that can be, and how much more flow. And as you say, like new, ranges of things that have never happened before for you. And it's happening in direct connection with everyone else. So I imagine they're way more inspired than a normal dance performance, because they're actually part of it.
Yeah. That's the sense I got from the feedback. Afterwards, we had an after talk, and everyone stayed, like the whole audience stayed, and we were speaking for like 45, 50 minutes, and everyone was really engaged. And like one woman shared how she normally she feels quite distanced, and she felt impacted and like changed in some way from that experience. So yeah, I just like after that, I just immediately thought, yeah, this is circling, but in movement.
Right.
And it's totally a meditative practice, just really staying with whatever it is. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm just going to move and do something.
Yeah.
I'm just staying really present with the sensations in my body, and not just noticing them, but what do the sensations in my body actually want to do, like right now? Like where is it leading me to? And yeah, like is it moving, or is it still, or is it opening or closing, and just going wherever that wants to take me? Which is still scary as fuck as I'm doing it now even, but yeah.
I'm just tuning into my body and thinking, does it want to move, and feeling like some not quite frozenness, but like how it's comfortable just to stay very still. And
right. I think that's something a lot of people experience, that frozenness, and probably without even like being aware of it.
Exactly.
Just because of the expectations of society, like how we should move.
Right.
So yeah, like I've just been like, as we've been having this call, I'm just sitting here kind of like allowing small movements in my spine and in my head and arms, like just trying to stay soft and in tune with that.
I'm doing the same now, and I'm feeling way more pleasure, like at my spine, my arms, like there's more flow.
Yeah, there's way more flow, because then we're like, oh yeah, there's stuff happening here, and there's something to actually follow, and it's not like consciously created, it's just there always.
And there's something about like using pleasure as a guide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a particular form of pleasure, like a flow and like a release is what it feels like. And as you said about moving away from the standard program, and that you do like for half an hour, which can be fine to give people a taster of something.
Absolutely.
but it's more like this integrated practice throughout the day where, you know, squatting in the shower can be a movement practice, or just walking through the park and bouncing along the railings as a way to get flow. And then standing, just I'm looking out on my balcony, I'm practicing standing in a particular way and feeling how my alignment is and how my energy is and breathing, and using pleasure as a guide. Can you say any more about that? Because I think that's something that we both share, that there's a particular form of pleasure that is beautiful to experience in and of itself, but it's actually like it points the way.
It does. It's like flow feels like a better description of it. It's like a way that's being opened and shown to us every moment, and we can choose to let go into it, but we can't like force it.
Right.
Never force it. It just has to be there, and it's like it's ungraspable, and it's always always kind of seems like it always leads me, at least, where I need to go. And it's definitely not always pleasurable, but it's like, okay, shit, yeah, I need to face this now. It's like taking me to the next step that I have to go. And I guess you could call it pleasure, and for me, what stops it is fear. Like holding back, like, oh shit, I'll be exposed if I do that, or oh, I'm not good enough to do that, or limiting beliefs that come up in that context.
But the beauty of how I've seen you work and how we work in circling is, even if there is fear and block and contraction, it's like, oh, what is that? And what's the quality of that? And does it want to move at all? Or does it, like, what's the range of it? And it's the honoring of what's actually there is the way to release it, then you would say.
Yeah. There's, because if we try to ignore it, then it just gets worse. It's like building another layer of judgment on top of what's there. Like, it gets further away in a way. So there always has to be acceptance for whatever's there, if it's resistance or fear or judgment. Even like if we start judging our judgment, then it just becomes this endless mindfuck. So yeah, that's where the circling principles are so beautiful, just staying with whatever's there as it is. And yeah, it took me a long time to, like, grasping the idea is quite easy, but then embodying it it's a fucking journey to go on.
And there's one thing to embody it just in connection, like I feel very capable at from the practice, but then to do that in terms of movement, the way you want to move, and then the way you want to dance, and is another, it's like another challenge and opportunity.
Yeah There's a lot of richness there, because our body is carrying us around in daily life. So it's, for me, obviously, that's where I feel there's most richness for me, since that's my field. But it's like staying in that space, and not just only of revealing. Feels vulnerable sharing this for some reason. Like but it's like for me, it was just constantly facing what I imagined other people were expecting of me, especially in movement. Because like just swaying a little bit, like people start like wondering what's going on.
Mm.
especially in the beginning when I was opening to it, when I was like moving like this. People are like, oh, what's going on? And circling on, people were kind of sharing, yeah, it looks pleasant. But when I'm out and about, and I was like imagining people's judgment, so that was a big one for me. Like, and now it's not as violent as it was in the beginning, when all of my kind of repressed stuff was kind of just bubbling out and like expressing itself in kind of weird ways. But I guess, yeah, I'm glad I had the circling context to explore that in. That was an important one for me. A place where I could open and just allow, just be in that.
It's been amazing to see your journey, to be with you on it, to meet you at all the different stages. We didn't like each other the first time we met, to you telling me you were going to smash my puny little face in, and then we agreed we didn't want to be, we wanted to be on the same team at least. We got that
far. Yeah.
But I feel like we've supported each other a lot, been through a lot together, and now we're at a place where we can lead something together. And
yeah,
I like that idea of bringing stuff with you. And yeah,
it's been a special journey with you. Like, I think it was probably about a year ago when we really started getting closer, and I stopped holding back as much, and I was like sharing my gifts more with you, like the quite deep work that I've been doing with movement.
I'd like to mention that as another example of what you do, because it was just, you noticed something in my spine, my neck, and just showed me a different way to hold myself. And straight away I could feel like the energetic, it wasn't just like a more comfortable way to hold myself, but I could feel the energetics of it. And I was walking around in that posture that day, and like I was feeling like a gorilla, and primal energies. And then I remember Christiana like being amazed by it, and it was just really just a really nice example of what this work can do. And knowing that energy, having access to more of that primal energy, has helped me grow as a leader and have more energy.
Yeah, I think that was your biggest place of growth, like growing into that, because you were so developed on like the relational aspects,
and
then like including the expression of your body more.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's why it was so powerful for me to work with you and develop my work with you, was because you were so able to accurately describe what was happening in your body as I was working with you in connection with me. So it was like really giving me a space to grow into that more. And now that's kind of become my main approach. Like I sometimes like teach people how to do handstands and stuff like that, but way more often now it's like about the deep emotions that are connected to our physical being.
Is this a good place to wrap up?
I think so, yeah.
It's been good to speak to you.
Likewise, man. Hope we could do it.
Yeah, all the best.
Yeah.